Iran. It's a country known for religious extremism, repression of women, the imprisoning of gay people, and the world's second largest occurrence of gender reassignment surgeries. Wait, what? Those are two things that don't normally happen together. So how did this bizarre contradiction even happen? Well, it's a fascinating and unlikely story revolving around two characters, one from the heart of Iran's repressed LGBT movement, and the other the architect of the Iranian Revolution. Our story begins in 1950 in a small Iranian town called Abqanar, with a transgender woman named Maryam Malkara. Assigned male at birth, Maryam was given the name Feridun. From a young age, she felt a great deal of conflict about her identity and that she had falsely been born into a man's body. Iran, during the time of her birth, was a conflicted country. It was ruled by a repressive monarch known as the Shah. Despite the extreme democratic repression under his rule, the country was experiencing a period of economic growth and a degree of liberalisation that many felt was a sign of the country becoming westernized. As part of this movement in 1963, the Shah instigated a policy which he called the White Revolution. This included several reforms, from enfranchising women and allowing non-Muslims to hold political office. Meanwhile, in Iran's religious epicenter of Qom, we meet the second protagonist in this story. Ruhollah Khomeini was a prominent Shia cleric who stood out in stark opposition against the Shah's plans, going as far as to call them an attack on Islam. Through his speeches, he galvanized many against the Shah and became the figurehead of the opposition. As a result of leading this increasing movement against the Shah, he was driven into exile in Iraq and later Paris. In 1975, Maryam travelled to London and learnt more about her identity. It was there that she came to the realisation that she was in fact not gay, but rather transgender. She made the decision that she wished to change her gender, but being strictly Islamic, she wanted to do so with religious approval. She started writing letters to Khomeini, explaining her situation and asking for religious guidance on what to do. His answers came back based off of a precedent that he himself had set in 1963 regarding intersex individuals, that he recommended that she follow the Islamic obligations of being a woman, and so she did, living the next few years of her life as a transgender woman. Over in Iran in 1979, a situation was developing that would alter the trajectory of both of these individuals' lives forever. That year, the discontent with the Shah that had been seething beneath the surface boiled over in the Iranian Revolution. With the Shah deposed, Khomeini having become the face of the opposition, in February of that year, triumphantly returned to Iran and was installed as its first Ayatollah. Following Khomeini's return, Iran shifted from a secular society to one run under a strict interpretation of Sharia law. It has a president, prime minister, and a parliament, but above all of this sits the Ayatollah, who as God's representative on earth has a veto over any law to be passed. While the old Iran was certainly not something you'd ever call progressive, the new Iran that arose enforces a strict adherence to religious doctrine on all of its citizens. Individuals who stray outside of the strictly defined gender roles or differ in any other way from Islamic order are harshly punished. Having returned to Iran, life for Maryam in this new country became much harder. Several times she was imprisoned, forced to detransition, and was injected with testosterone. Having lived under this repression for many years, she made the decision that she would attempt to confront Khomeini directly. In 1985, in northern Tehran, she approached his home, dressed in a man's suit and bearded at the time, due to the strict requirement in Islamic law. She carried a copy of the Quran and had her shoes tied around her neck, a symbol in Islam of one seeking refuge. The guards who saw her approaching believed that she was carrying explosives and beat her with sticks. They did this until Khomeini's brother Hassan and his son Ahmed intervened. After much deliberation, they decided to take her to see Khomeini himself. On hearing her appeal and discussing it with 3 of his doctors, Khomeini issued her a decision known as a fatwa, granting her religious approval to change her gender. A fatwa is essentially a religious legal ruling based on a point of Islamic law. Much like in the West, where decisions made in a court are often done so based upon precedents set by prior legal rulings, law in Iran works much the same way, but instead is based upon previous fatwas. Because of this ruling, a precedent was set that it was acceptable for other individuals in Mayim's position to seek gender reassignment surgery. Make no mistakes, however, just because this fatwa was granted does not mean that Iran is in any way a tolerant place for LGBT people. It's one of just 11 countries where homosexuality still carries the death penalty. Paradoxically, the prevalence of gender reassignment surgery that exists in Iran nowadays is actually a byproduct of their extreme adherence to binary gender roles and a rejection of same-sex relationships. Many gay individuals or pre-op trans people are often pressured by the law to go through with transitioning and seeking legal recognition as the opposite gender in order to be able to be in relationships with their partners or safely be gay while not violating Islamic law or risking imprisonment or death. It's because of this imbalance between how transgender versus gay people are treated due to Khomeini's ruling all the way back in 1985 that Iran has this high prevalence of trans individuals despite being a nation with extreme oppression of LGBT people. Mayim died in 2012, having lived a life dedicated to fighting for trans individuals and having established her own charity. Her fight is not over, however, and if you want to do something to help LGBT individuals in the Middle East, then I've linked to a charity down below. They do a lot of great work and provided lots of the resources that I used towards scripting this video. Thanks for watching.